How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to take a little bit of a look at Alchemy. This is my first overview for Alchemy going into the War Within. I'm very impressed with Alchemy. So far it is looking pretty smart. They've taken the basic concept of Alchemy that we had in Dragonflight and they've tweaked a few little things and given it a few extra little bits of love that have really propelled the profession forward for me. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll have seen me gushing about this profession the other day. I think the devs who've put time and effort into this should be very proud. It's still undergoing some balancing changes, so all the material quantities and things like recipe difficulties are not finalised. But I wanted to give you a quick rundown of what Alchemy is going to be looking like, and more importantly, some of the tweaks and changes that they've made. I'm going to assume that most players have at least played with Alchemy in Dragonflight a little bit to understand the foundations, but we'll dive into some of the new stuff. We now have 2 experimentations. The entire system is built around this discovery mode once again. You're going to throw some herbs into the mix. You're going to do your discovering. It still has the chance to go boom, but this is predominantly the way that you are going to learn your recipes. Now in Dragonflight, once you'd learned all of your recipes, you kind of would often cease to use this. But they've cleverly introduced a way to at least incentivize to maybe keep pressing this button even once we have learned all of the recipes. So there's some interesting little buffs that they've added in the spec trees. We'll talk about the spec trees in detail a little bit in a minute. But say, for example, you are doing some experimentation with the basic herb, Mycobloom, and you choose to put some spec points in here. By the very end of it, you can sometimes recover flasks as a result of experimenting with Mycobloom, and this pattern continues on all of the different herbs, depending on which herb you're experimenting with. That there's going to be the chance to proc flasks out the back of these. Now, the wording of this is you may now sometimes recover flasks. It's going to take some testing to decide just how often is sometimes. But we'll find out that sort of stuff to see if it's worthwhile pressing the button after. Hopefully it will be. Hopefully you'll still have some incentive to press this button. There is also meticulous experimentation. This is on a 2-day cooldown, or at least it has been in early testing. It takes less herbs for you to do your research with, and it also takes some of the new Artisan's Metal, which is now named Artisan's Acuity. This, though, is significantly more likely to actually teach you a recipe. And for those who are just looking to collect the recipes and are not looking to do zoom things and are not looking to blast the profession quite so quickly, making sure you do your meticulous experimentation every couple of days might be an easier way to methodically collect everything, if that's sort of your aim there. But it's nice that we've got 2 options. The wild experimentation can still go boom. They have nicely created the ability for alchemists to actually make formulated courage. This is the thing that allows you to drink it and sort of ignore the cooldown, ignore the going boom mechanic of the experimentation. This, I believe, in Dragonflight was just a random proc. Sometimes you got it, and when you got it, that was like, cool, that's another free wild experimentation. This time round, we can actually craft this ourselves. To get the recipe, though, you do need to spec into it. I can't quite remember off the top of my head exactly where it is. I think it might be 35 points in the first tree. Yeah, there we go. Learn to craft formulated courage. So you can put some spec points in this nice and early if you want to overcome some of the time gating of your experimentation. So there's different ways you can play about this. If you're playing with it casually, you can just do a cheap experimentation every couple of days, and if you are absolutely blasting and you want every advantage and you want every potion, every flask as fast as possible, there is a way to also achieve that if you wish. There's another one here called Thaumaturgy that we'll talk about in a second. This is a wonderful little system they've added in Alchemy. Once again, is going to require a huge amount of testing, but this is basically a redesigned transmutation system, which is quite clever. Now already, you might have noticed a couple of times I've said the word flasks, and that wasn't a slip of the tongue. That is legitimately a thing. Flasks are back. And that has meant that vials have taken a demotion. Vials have been predominantly pushed down to being like profession buffs for the most part. Flasks are back. Flasks are going to be our main combat hour-long duration consumable that I suspect most people are going to be playing with, and this is where I suspect some of the big business to be with Alchemy this time round in the reintroduction of flasks. You can research into these, you can spec specifically into flasks if you so wish. It's nice to see they're making a return. What other things should we focus on about Alchemy? We do cauldrons. There's a few significant changes to the cauldrons as well. This time round, they are bind to warband. This means you do not need your main character to be the alchemist anymore. You can make your cauldrons on whichever character you have alchemy on, and then you can throw them in the warband. And it's clever enough to, when you place the cauldron down on any of your recipes, to provide the options based upon the alchemist that has the best skill in your warband. So there is some, this does indicate that there is some sort of magical hidden tracking behind the scenes of which things you've unlocked and which things you have not unlocked yet. But it's nice to know that you can be a little bit more flexible with the cauldrons if you happen to be the person in your raid team that's responsible for bringing this. I still know to this day that many guilds don't even bother using these, but for those that do, they've added a little bit of quality of life there. Which could be handy. These crystal forged cauldron, though, these are a vendor item, and these were a consumable crafting reagent, and they were valued at 60,000 gold at one point. So don't expect making the cauldrons to be cheap. I mean, obviously, when you break it down based upon the 40 charges, what's that make it? What, 1.5k per flask? Something along those lines. So it might be your guild's choice whether they're responsible for bringing their own or whether the guild covers something like this. That's going to be up to you guys individually. When you are doing some crafting, one subtle change they've made is a spillover system. Spillover system is such that when you are crafting something, let's see if we can simulate this for you here now. Let's just make a few of these basic potions. You may notice this buff that pops up at the top. This is your spillover buff, and it stacks. Multi-craft while crafting potions increased by 12. Stacks each time you craft a potion up to 10 times and lasts for 5 minutes. This means your multi-craft is not going to be great the first few times you craft something, but it's going to steadily increase. It's not going to increase by much. We did get a multi-craft proc there, which is nice. It's not going to increase by much, but something is definitely better than nothing. There is already some goblins doing goblin things, figuring out how to do this. Do you maybe craft some of your super duper mega cheap potions to stack your buff to 10 first, and then switch over to the potions that you're actually wanting to craft most of? See, now we've got full 10 stack buff here. We've got a 60% increase, 60 point increase to multi-craft, which is the equivalent of, I believe, of about 6%. I don't have profession tools on at the moment, which is why a lot of my stats down here are looking pretty weak source. But with some profession tools, you'll really bump up these as well. But maybe getting your potion spillover buff before you go and then craft the things you want could be a good play. This also works with the vials. This also works with the flasks. There is a separate buff for each one of these. Vials, flasks, and potions all have this little spillover mechanic. And whilst potions give you a multi-craft buff, vials give you a, what does it say here, a resourcefulness buff. And I don't actually think I've unlocked a flask to craft one right now, but I'm pretty sure flasks give you a resourcefulness buff with their spillover mechanic. These spillover mechanics, much like a lot of things in Alchemy, is something we actually have to spec into. So let's take a little bit of a look into the specialization trees just very quickly here. So our first tree, alchemical mastery, is basically our ability to work with the different materials that we're going to be using on a regular basis, all the different types of herbs, and allows us to just be better at crafting things that use those herbs. The interesting ones to note is when you get to the very last node in one of these. This is where you unlock the ability for your experimentation to potentially give you one of these flasks. And as we've already mentioned, those flasks could easily be worth 1,500 gold, 2,000 gold a piece. So if you can do your experimentation on the regular and proc flasks out the back of these, this could really help you. Whilst difficult to repeat at scale, it could at least give you some reason to make a little bit of bonus gold, give you a few extra bonus items to sell on the auction house to squeeze out that little bit of profit, which is nice. We have a tree dedicated to the production of flasks. It gives you sort of bulk production, multi-craft bonuses on one side, and it also gives you the bonus to your profession vials this time round on the other side. The potion tree is, well, it's a little bit difficult to call it a tree, isn't it, really? It's a touch difficult to call it a tree when it's just a stick, but it's the same concept again. Be better at making potions, and then some bulk production bonuses as well, stacking that multi-craft up. And finally, we'll talk about thaumaturgy for a couple of minutes, as this is the new system to alchemy that the alt armies are going to absolutely love. This is where I suspect the alt armies, anybody that's got a bunch of characters set up to create Dracothists each week right now, are likely to just take a slight pivot in the direction of thaumaturgy for the new expansion. It's basically the transmute system, but it's the transmute system with a couple of twists. And this has its whole entire spec tree for you to play with it as well. The concept of thaumaturgy then is quite simple. You have this regular recipe that you can do as much as you wish. It's incredibly difficult, so you are unlikely to ever be able to guarantee it. Quality 3, in fact, with the recent balance pass on some of these recipe difficulties, there is no chance you will guarantee this at quality 3. So this will be a prime candidate for your concentration. But what you do is you throw in a bunch of materials, and it can take not just alchemy materials, it can take more than just herbs. It can take ore, it can take leather, it can take bolts of wilder thread, it can take all sorts of stuff. You basically smush any material you want, and in process of smushing said materials, it will spit out, if we do one just ever so quickly here, it will give you some transmutagen. You can see here, we got some mercurial transmutagen, we got some ominous transmutagen, and we got some of this gleaming transmutagen. So it spits out a bunch of materials. These are bind on pickup, these are soul bound, these are going to be individual to you as an alchemist. These are like the, should we consider them the things that make up other things, the materials that go together to make everything. You can, with the art of transmutation, smush some of these together to mix them about to try and get the right ones that you're actually looking for. But your ultimate goal is to get this gleaming transmutagen and is to make yourself these blasphemites. Anybody that watched the jewel crafting video I put out yesterday will be aware that blasphemites are the sort of faux diamond, if you wish. Lab-based diamonds. Blasphemites are going to be super required by jewel crafters all day long, and alchemists are responsible for making them via this transmutation system. Expect these to be big business, expect these to be expensive, and early testing is indication that alchemists may only be able to produce 1, possibly 2 of these a week, based on the amount of transmutagen that you can actually get. You may have noticed there that when I did my thaumaturgy, I got some gleaming transmutation straight away. This is only, I believe, a first of the day bonus. Watch the game prove me wrong now. Yeah, you only get a small amount of this the first time you do your thaumaturgy a day. The first time you do one of your transmutes. These are all on a daily cooldown. If we to do one of these, you'll see it will give us a 24-hour cooldown on it. Additional craft comes in 24 hours. Luckily, like transmutes, you can stack up a few of them. So it's not strictly necessary for you to log in every single day to press your button. You can take a couple of days off if you wish. That said, and this is more of a bit of feedback for Blizzard, there is a node in the spec tree, and I'm trying to remember exactly where it is. Here we go. Your first act of thaumaturgy each day grants a significant amount of extra transmutagen. This is kind of meaning that if you do want to be optimal with this system, and if you are playing with it a lot on alts, you are going to still want to log in every single day. as that first initial bump to your first per day is going to be really, really, really lucrative. Now, I'm not trying to spin this video into a thematurgy guide in any way, shape, or form. We'll go over this in a bit more detail in the future. But I think we need we need one or the other. If we're going to be able to stack up a few daily cooldowns for convenience, it then feels a little bit harsh if we then find out that actually we really do still need to log in every day. But anyway, that's me nitpicking. That's more a little bit of a feedback direct for Blizzard, really, more than anything. So that's really the overview of Alchemy. There's not too much more to it than that. As you can probably tell, it's taken the Dragonflight Alchemy system and just tweaked it a little bit. A few fine adjustments to the experimentation. This new thematurgy system to give transmutations a slightly different feel. And with the reintroduction of flasks instead of vials taking a demotion, it starts to feel a little bit more sort of like the Alchemy we love and we know. We're still going to be crafting and selling everything on the auction house predominantly. It's a great little profession for those that don't care all that much about the work order system. I know I fall into that category, and I've had my opinions quite publicly on the work order system. I'm sure you share similar opinions. This is going to be a good profession for those that just want to dabble in their own time, maybe throw it on a couple of different characters to take advantage of this transmutation system. Try and produce a little bit more of these big sought-after materials and make their profit from there. So that's it, boys and girls. I'll leave it there for this video. If you're enjoying this little series, make sure to give the video a like. I am going to plan on doing a little overview video in the next few days for all of the professions. So even if Alchemy is not your jam, I will cover all of them in good time. So make sure you give these videos a like. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm. Consider hitting that subscription button if you haven't already, and have yourself a wonderful day. I will catch you all next time. Peace.